O salty sea, how much of your salt is made from the tears of Portugal? For crossing you, how many mothers cried? How many sons prayed in vain? How many brides were left unmarried? Just so you could be ours, O sea. These verses by Fernando Pessoa are more than poetry. They are memory, carved into the soul of a nation that once dared to face the unknown. The Portuguese did not sail with ships alone. They sailed with pain because the cost was real. They sailed with courage because every journey meant danger. And above all, they sailed with science, because only through knowledge could they navigate a world without borders, where the horizon was not the end, but the beginning. At a time when the edge of the world still inspired fear, the Portuguese looked to the sky, not with superstition, but with purpose, knowledge, and calculation. The nautical astrolabe, refined by minds like Abraham Zacuto, became the navigator's compass to the heavens. With it, they measured the sun, followed the stars, and found their latitude in open sea. A simple instrument, a bronze disc in the hand, but a revolution in navigation. It turned the sky into a guide, and it proved that the unknown could be measured. Science guided them not only through the stars, but also across the surface of the earth. Voyage after voyage, the maps grew more refined, drawn from memory, guided by stars, tested by sea. They recorded coastlines, winds, and ocean currents, but also the rhythms of tides and the phases of the moon. This allowed them to enter rivers at the right moment and avoid the hidden traps of unknown shores. These were not just drawings. They were memory turned into survival. They were maps that could save lives. But the sea was not only a path of discovery. It was also a stage of suffering. Scurvy, exhaustion, and storms tested every voyage. Behind every route, every ship, and every map were bodies worn by salt and souls stretched by time. Stagnant water mixed with filth. Rats and cockroaches shared the space with men. The stench was unbearable. Work was constant, rest rare. Food was scarce, hunger constant. And sometimes more than disease. It was longing that hurt the most. Even in pain, they pressed on, because hunger could be endured and longing swallowed. But the mission, the purpose, was greater than the suffering. For the Portuguese, every wave was a challenge, and every crossing an act of courage. Knowledge didn't sail on its own. It needed form, wood, sail, and genius. The Caravela, light and agile, was a breakthrough in Portuguese ship design. It carried lateen sails, triangular, adapted from Mediterranean ships. These sails allowed them to tack against the wind, a revolution at sea. With such a ship, Galeão defied the unknown, and in 1434 passed Cape Bojador, conquering not just a point on the map, but the fear of the world's end. But the oceans were vast, and the caravels, though agile, couldn't carry the weight of empire. So came the Nile, heavier, broader, stronger. Built for long-distance voyages, it carried men, supplies, cannons, and ambition. With a Nile, Vasco da Gama reached India in 1498, linking Europe to the riches of the East. And in 1500, Pedro Álvares Cabral crossed the Atlantic and reached the shores of Brazil. These ships faced storms, hunger, and time itself, and yet they endured. The Atlantic was no longer a barrier. It was a bridge to continents, to trade, and to history. But no ship commanded more awe than the Portuguese galleon. It wasn't just a vessel, it was a floating empire. Towering over the sea, clad in thick wood and iron, it sailed with rows of bronze cannons lining both sides. These were no ordinary weapons. Placed by skilled engineers, the artillery was designed for broadside fire, unleashing devastating volleys without the need for full reloading. Among them were the bombards, short-barreled, massive, and feared. And among the galleons, one stood above all, the St. John the Baptist, a fortress at sea, built in the shipyards of Portugal, and feared across Europe. Among sailors, it became known simply as Botafogo, not a nickname but a reputation, a name forged in battle, remembered for the fire it unleashed and the silence it left behind. But Portugal's true legacy was never just in the fire it unleashed. It was in the mind that aimed it. The empire was built not only with sails and cannons, but with questions, with study, with the quiet power of understanding. Behind each voyage was a calculation. Behind each discovery, a vision. This legacy was not carved into stone, but drawn into maps, traced in stars, carried in the hands of those who dared to dream beyond the known. At the edge of every charted world, the Portuguese left more than routes. They left ideas. They left questions that reshaped knowledge. And they left the soul of a people who believed that moving forward was not only a matter of wind and waves, but of will. Even when the sea resisted, they pressed on. Because for them, understanding the world was the greatest conquest of all.